discussing an essay we published today, Keep It Honest. The essay is about the demons that investors have to keep in check. The real problem, the biggest work an investor has to accomplish in order to succeed in the wealth generation business. And the problem is the propensity for hype. This is not something that stupid people do, or people that don't pay attention, or people that aren't informed enough, or whatever you want to use as a reason. The problem with the propensity for hype is that that is deeply ingrained in humans. And to counteract that is the actual skill of an investor. Because there's two ways you can counteract that. One is you can just never fall for hype, but then you will not be able to create wealth, because creating wealth means to step into the unknown. And that's exactly when hype is most prevalent. So you need to be able to distinguish the hype from the real. And that is what Keep It Honest means. This is another Imran podcast. It's December 19, 2025. This is Karim Delco. For the year, we are up 24.2%. The market's up 17.2%. We're outperforming by 7%. Keep It Honest is a new essay we just published, and it's meant to discuss the real work of an investor. The purpose of this podcast series is to give people a sense for what it feels like to run a hedge fund. So we would consider this a very, very important episode. That's also why there's an asterisk next to it, because sometimes we publish a lot of things that are hopefully useful, but sometimes we really think that this is the key to what we're trying to achieve with this podcast series. We want to help people understand what it feels like to run a hedge fund. It's absolutely paramount to be able to cut through the fog of hype. Hype is human. It's not, people fall for hype. It's been like that in the South Sea bubble. It's been like that in the computer bubble, in the railway bubble, in the internet bubble. And it's like that right now with AI. We will fall for hype. And the example we use in the essay is actually OpenAI, which is riding this hype bubble to their benefit. What that means is that they're increasingly hyping up their story in order to raise their valuation and their finances, because they need both. They need the valuation to be high for employees to attract and also keep them, and then they need the finances for the actual infrastructure investment that is necessary to compete in the coming age of AI. But the problem with OpenAI is that there is very little substance, and you can see that through, and we outlined some of the examples in the essay, with the cross financings, the vendor financings, the weird financial structures, the fact that people are talking about lots of customers, lots of revenue, and lots of high valuations, but there's very little tangible information about what's actually going on. So we want to leave it at that. This is not a rant against OpenAI or anything like that. It's just an example of how hype drives, and we excuse people. Like, there's nothing wrong with being caught in that hype. That's not the problem, because there is real value, in AI. There's real value in the technology. The problem, of course, as investors is to understand, okay, what is possible and where is the value creation going to be? And this is our job. And the most important thing is to keep it honest. And now, in the essay, we try to give our version of what it means to keep it honest. This is certainly not the only version, and other people have better approaches maybe, or different approaches. But for us, this is what works. And what we're trying to outline here is, most importantly, it's about the science. Now, we're in the business of investing in technologically disruptive, in technological disruptions, excuse me. So that means we're driven by technology. That doesn't mean it's the only way to generate wealth, but it's the way we have chosen to invest. And it's very important for a hedge fund manager to understand one thing, that there is a set of opportunities. Let's call this the set of all possible investments, all possible projects that you can channel capital to. Then there is the set of opportunities that are going to make money. That's a smaller set by definition. That set cannot be equal. That's not possible. The set of money-making opportunities is smaller than the set of all projects. Now, when I say the set of all projects, it means pretty much anything that people come up with, whether it's new technologies in AI, whether it's new hardware, whether it's new business models for beverage companies, whether it's new real estate business models, whether it's finding new materials for batteries, any kind of project. And there's a lot of stuff going on. And then there is the set of opportunities that actually make money, which is smaller. And that's, in plain English, just the kind of stuff that actually ends up surviving the valley of death, making money, etc. But then there's also the set of opportunities that we as hedge fund managers want to focus on. And that set is smaller than the set of potential money-making opportunities, also by definition, because you can't be everywhere. Actually, it's a very dangerous prospect to try to be everywhere. You want to focus on a smaller set of opportunities where you can think you can add value. And that's the set where you, as a hedge fund manager, you can make money. And that is the set that we chose, which is technological disruption. Technological disruption requires three things, and these are the kinds of things that help us keep it honest. The first thing is science. Science, that's where everything starts. Like, science is a proof of concept endeavor, right? And when I say science, I mean sort of the kind of science that really works. There's a lot of science out there. Some of it is convoluted. There's a reproduction crisis and all kinds of stuff. But there's also a lot of good science out there. Good science is science that people genuinely go to the lab and try to come up with new things. And a lot of people do that. The scientific community is working incredibly hard in driving knowledge, driving up the knowledge frontier. That's what scientists do. There's some problems with science. There's some corruption, some government involvement, things like that. But overall, the scientists, the people in the field, as a big sort of collective, have good intentions. They are not corrupt, and they try to move the knowledge frontier further out into what's possible. With science comes technology. Technology is when science is turned into products and services. So the difference between science and technology is that you can have a robot that works in the lab and looks really nice and is very expensive and does interesting things. But in order to have a technology, you need to have a robot that can execute tasks repeatedly, doesn't fall apart, is maybe a bit more general, like things like that. And or you can have a really good lithium-ion battery in the lab that has very high energy density, very high, very low degradation, or things like that, but then that battery really doesn't last too long, and then you have a problem. So technology is when you go from concept to, okay, that actually works. For technology to happen, you need engineering. So typically, this is typically the case. When science is being handed over to engineers, that's when technology starts kicking in. And then the last part is the commercialization. Commercialization, that is when you actually start scaling up. And this is the key. This is actually the most important part. The part that you will find very little literature on in technology and business school seminars. But it's the most important part. And that is when you go from concept to technology to scale. Without scale, wealth cannot be created. So scale is incredibly important. So when we say keep it honest here at Orange Capital Partners, that's what we're trying to do. We spend a lot of time in the science community because it's useful to understand what's going on. And we actually we show a case study, and that is the robotics case study, which is where we are invested right now in robotics. And we're trying to make the point that in this particular field, we've seen sort of those three things happening. So first, the science. Like science and AI have been progressing at a rapid pace in the last 10 years. But most interestingly, in robotics, the science has been sort of like robotics has sort of been like hip hop to pop music. It's kind of been in the cellar for a long time. It was more like fringe. It was weird. It wasn't the high accolades type stuff. And you know, you went to Europe's even in 2023, the robotics seminars were, you know, not very, you know, there were barely any people there. That's different now. And the reason it's different now is because a lot of talent has moved in. We list a few examples. Fei Li with her world model company, World Labs. We have, you know, Peter Abil. We have, you know, Sergey Levin. We have Drew Batra from Carnegie Mellon. Abil and Levin from Berkeley. We have, you know, Dieter Fox from UWash. Just a few, just to name a few. I don't want to, you know, insult other people here. There's many, many more contributions. Those are just sort of the ones we follow, and and they've done amazing work. And I think the most important breakthroughs in science, as far as robotics is concerned, is that there's been scientific proof that generalization in robotics works, and that means that if you train a robot on general tasks for several tasks through one model, the robot gets better at each task relative to robots which are just trained on one task. And this generalization is the key to what became the humanoid robot race. When Elon Musk announced Optimus in 2023, hundreds of companies sprung out, particularly in China. And that's not because Elon Musk said it, but it's because the science was right. Musk was probably just sort of the peak of the iceberg here. But the key is that the science was right, and then it became a technology problem. So now it's about engineering, and if we just follow what Musk was saying, it's about actuators, it's about dexterity, it's about, you know, weight balancing, those kinds of things. Engineering problems need to be solved at scale, and they're being solved at scale, whether it's in the West or in China. And lastly, what we need is commercialization, and we've just recently had a breakthrough there from our side, which is, in plain English, we found a commercial use case for Optimus, and the commercial use for Optimus is orbital AI, space AI, data centers in space. They require robots to build and maintain those data centers. Whether it's the solar arrays, it's estimated to require about, you know, 1.5 to 2 square miles of solar arrays to power 1 gigawatt of GPUs. We have the radiators, we have the GPUs themselves, the solar arrays, the building, the maintenance. All of that stuff has to be done by robots. It cannot be done by humans in space. So this is the use case. And we compare the orbital AI use case to the oil industry in the early part of the 20th century. This is a massive energy source. In the case of orbital AI, it's the sun, which is abundant in space. It's available at very high rates, and also, of course, you don't have to deal with the NIMBY problem, which is becoming increasingly problematic on Earth, NIMBY or political or both. You can't just put massive solar arrays in the Sahara Desert because you don't want to depend on lunatic regimes there, and you also can't put stuff up in the Nevada Desert because here you have to deal with the NIMBY problem. So in space, you don't have those problems. So what we want to, and this is, by the way, inspired by other people. This is not just our idea, so I want to give credit where credit's due. Joe Bati, excuse me, for example, he inspired this thought that when people find ways to make money, that's when the wheels start rolling. And we just discussed Taipan, the book about the foundation of Hong Kong and the exploration of China. And it's a very nice corollary, right? How the Brits went to Asia because there was money to be made. Like, we need the purpose of monetary profits. I think this is our carrot. As much as we want to talk about other things, and it's interesting how humans are, we talk about other things, exploration. Musk talks about curiosity, interplanetary species, and other people in Silicon Valley talk about, you know, they use the environment or even worse, like social justice and all that nonsense for purpose. When in the end, there's only one purpose why people wake up in the morning and work, and that is to make money. and have profitable. And whoever doesn't, by the way, you should be very careful. Just to name the NGOs and the nonprofits which pretend to not be working for profit and then cause a lot of social damage while they're doing that. So back to back to the essay. What we're saying is that orbital AI, space AI, data centers in space is offering an opportunity for massive, massive deployment of robots. And this is what's so important for Optimus. So we see an opportunity for Optimus and the Tesla AI ecosystem to be able to iterate around an integrated supply chain, an integrated product fully from the chip all the way up to the form factor, and also iterate around a use case that actually is very profitable. And that's when the rubber meets the road. That's when wealth is created. And that's what the essay is kind of hopefully able to come across. So again, to summarize, what we're saying is that keep it honest is the process. It's an algorithm. You start with science, you transfer the technology, and then finally commercialization. You can dream, but you have to always be grounded in reality. And the reality, again, science, technology, and commercial. Thank you.